Good afternoon. My name is Donna Thiesel, and I'm your host of Donna's Edge Talk Show, where truth matters. Thank you so much for watching every day, Monday through Friday, from 1 to 3 p.m. Central, as I get to ride home with you in the afternoon. We can do this every single day, 1 to 3 p.m., and I definitely appreciate it. You can find us on television, channel 182 on Charter Communications, and Abundant Television, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. And don't forget the podcast at thenewscasters.com. You can find us on the radio, icradio.media. And I wanted to thank you so much for sending all your emails and your texts. I definitely appreciate it. You really make my day. So if you would like to just to hear something new, want me to do a little research for you? I'm an ongoing student, still taking classes, by the way. And so I'll be glad to do that for you. Just send an email to Donna at donnasedge.com. That's Donna at donnasedge.com. Have my friend attorney, no, it's Dr. Attorney Bob French. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you. It's nice to be here with you.
Well, it's always nice to be with you too. I always have wonderful interviews and get a lot of response from the interviews from you as well.
Oh my.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm trying to inflate his head as much as I possibly can. No, for real. Absolutely. Those are really fun interviews. Now, you wanted to talk today is about Mother's Day.
Yeah, Mother's Day is Sunday, and I thought if we didn't have a subject to talk about, we'd talk about mothers. I'm one of the very fortunate people. I like to say that my mother carried me in her body for 9 months, carried me in her arms for 2 years, and carried me in her heart for the rest of her life. I had a very, very, very darling mother, and I wasn't a bad boy. I lived my life to please my mother and never disappoint her. And we had a lot of adventures.
What kind of adventures did you have?
Well, one that probably changed my life was in the eighth grade, and they had this party. This Carolyn Roberts had a party, and I was invited. And we lived in the country, outhouse, no running water, blah blah. So I came in, and my mother says, "Well, how did school go today?" I said, "I was fine." "Well, what's new?" I said, "Oh, nothing. Carolyn Roberts is having a party tonight, tomorrow night, and there'll be all that hugging and a chalking."
Talking. What's that?
Song was popular then.
Oh, I'll have to look that up.
This, oh, you don't know that one?
No, no, but you've intrigued me. I've got to find
Well,
out.
it's good to have a girl so big and fat. When you go to hug her, you don't know where you're at. You have to take a piece of chalk in your hand and make a mark to know where you began. One day I was just a chalking and a hugging, hugging and a chalking away, when I met another guy with a chalk in his hand, coming around the other way over the mountain, coming around the other way.
You could have missed out on that one. Now, I would be offended if you sang that to me, big and fat.
I didn't, I, didn't, I
You
had
didn't
no
sing that, no.
inclination for it anyway.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, I said, I'm not interested in going to see all that hugging and chalking. And my mother said, "So there's going to be girls and boys there?" Yeah. She said, "You're going." Now, at that time, my father was really off, and I was more or less raising my three sisters at that time, and my mother was working, and I was doing everything I could to make a dollar. And anyway, I cooked and sewed and washed and ironed and whatever was necessary to help my mother. Because my father wasn't able to do anything. And my sisters were a little young. So she said, "So they're going to be there, are they?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, you're going." I said, "I don't have any clothes to go to that." She said, "You will have." I said, "I'm not going." She said, "Oh, yes, you are, young man. You live here with all of us women, and I'm concerned about you.
Mhm.
I didn't know what it meant then, but later I did. I guess I was girlish at that time, although I was an athlete. I played with dolls. I had to entertain these girls, and
Mhm.
I guess I was getting a bit effeminate.
Well, you grew out of it.
Yes, I did.
Mhm.
Uh, I had I like 3 merit badges, being an Eagle Scout, and when I kissed my first girl, I became a Girl Scout, and I never did become an Eagle Scout. But I've
Congrats.
been very fortunate with wonderful women in my life. Uh, it's most amazing that I had 4 sisters, and I, I've always been close to females and always honored them. My mother said, "Be nice to women. Your mother's one." Thank you, Mom.
Mhm.
So, but she taught me everything, and I did live a life that I can say never disappointed my mother. I went to church and I treated people with respect. Now, I scared her to death with a lot of crazy stuff that boys do, like diving off the Kettle Memorial at Tennessee River at
I
Decatur.
have a boy too,
Well,
very much like you, but I've got to ask you a question.
uh,
Okay, so you try to treat your sons to treat women with respect.
right.
So the first words out of my mouth when he was going on his first date, I said, "Son, you need to open the door for the girl." Well, he comes in from the date, and he's at times a little different. Okay, so he said, "Mom, this girl looked at me like she thought I was crazy." And I said, "About what?" He said, "Because I went to open the door. She said, 'I can open my own door, thank you.'" And I said, "Well, maybe that's the wrong gal." What did your mother say about things like that?
Oh, goodness. I was never allowed to wear a cap in the house. I was never allowed to eat without saying a blessing. Uh, just there were a lot of rules that I obeyed, and basically whatever my mother said, I did.
Mhm.
I never argued with my mother. In order to go for that party,
I was going to say, except for that party.
well,
Said
she
you were
had to
go.
walk 2.5 miles into Decatur to buy a shark skin suit on credit
Oh,
at Goforth Clothing Store
yeah.
and walk back home and make sure it fit and alter it and everything on a pedal sewing machine. And finally, she got me looking like a dude. And she said it was brown tan. And she says, "Now I want you to go to that party, and when they play post office, I want you to kiss every girl you can." She said, "Then I won't worry about you." So I did
That's a
what
mom
my
looking
mother
out for a
told me
boy.
to do. The stars blinked and the lights went off, and it was
Lightning flashed. I mean, all those
unbelievable
wonderful
to kiss
things.
a girl.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'll never forget that. But she's the one that authored it, and she knew what she was doing. But I can honestly say that I'm probably the furthest thing you can imagine for being anything other than a man. I'm certainly,
What are some more things you mom taught you? It's just simply about having respect for women, and I know you do. You've opened the door for me several times.
well, I
Thank you for
always
that.
do
A lot of
that.
folks don't. They weren't raised that way.
Yeah, well, I do that. Of course, she taught me how to cook, and I am the kitchen magician.
Hmm.
I can make something out of nothing.
So, what is the dish everybody always asks for when they go to your place? Everything.
I can't think of them asking for anything in particular because
You just like to surprise people.
what? Oh well, lobster bisque and eggplant parmesan. Those are
Oh.
my specialties.
Hmm.
Uh, Eggplant parmesan. People who eat that say that's the best I ever had. And of course, lobster bisque. If you do it right, there's Nothing like it in the world.
Okay, the first time you cooked a lobster,
Yeah.
did it kind of freak you out? You had to throw it in the, I mean, it was kind of still moving around. Were you okay with that?
Uh, didn't bother me. It might have bothered the lobster.
I bet it bothered the lobster.
No, my mother taught me to sew on a pedal sewing machine, and I can sew very well. She taught me to iron. We couldn't afford an ironing board, so we ironed on the kitchen table with a flat iron that you got hot on a laundry heater stove. We didn't have an electric iron. And
So did you make your own cornstarch to starch the shirts? Because my
uh,
grandmother did that.
she did, I was not part of that. I saw her do it with flour. And she put flour and baking flour and I don't know, baking powder and I don't know what all in it. But you stirred a memory. I can remember her doing that, cooking it out on a 3-eye laundry heater.
Mhm.
And, you think, well, it was rough. We didn't know it was rough. We thought it was just living.
What you don't know doesn't hurt you, right?
That's right. So we just lived in the country as country people.
Mhm.
There was a cotton patch right beside the house. We drew our water from a well. We washed clothes in a wash pot on Saturday under an open fire. And, people would say, "Oh, what a horrible way to live." Well, we didn't know that.
Well, people are wanting to get back to that now. You know how many
Yeah.
people they're looking for land so they can get out and go live like they did back in those days. And there's
Well,
nothing like well water. To
well,
me,
yeah,
that is the best water.
yeah. Well, we had well water, and we thought we were big time people because we had electricity.
Hmm.
There was a time we didn't have electricity, and we were under kerosene lamps. We couldn't afford a Aladdin lamp or one of those fancy lamps that made great fires. We made do with kerosene.
You had to keep that glass clean, didn't you?
Oh
The
yeah,
thing would
yeah.
just cloud up.
It's called the flu.
Oh, the flu. I
Yeah,
knew what it was. I just know what it's called.
yeah. Well, you have to clean the flue quite often because it'll blacken up. So every time you fire it up, you take a lamp rag and clean it out. Yeah. I have an Aladdin at home just to remind me and keep me humble.
There you go. My daughter-in-law grew up in Russia, and they were poor, and she later grew up to live actually in an orphanage. And so I've heard a story about when she came to the States. And my son has the most wonderful in-laws ever. And they're much better people than Phil and I are, but they're wonderful folks. And so I've heard a story about when they came back from Russia. She was 9 years old, didn't know what a light switch was. We're just used to these conveniences. You just turn on a light switch. And it freaked her out when she saw a light switch. And so Jim comes in from the garage, goes into the kitchen, and goes like this. And they said Larissa just stared. She was just stunned, did not know how to speak English. They didn't know how to communicate with her. And a lot of things that we just take for granted these days. You just flick a switch, and there goes the light. We don't appreciate things like we should, do we?
No, we really don't. I may have told you. Did I tell you about this guy asking me about my life and what I thought was the most important and all this stuff?
Hmm.
Well, I ran into this guy. I can't even remember where. But anyway, he was 90 years old, and I'm 90 years old. And he says, "Well, if you don't mind, let me ask you, what is the most important thing that's happened in the world in your 90 years?" And it put me to thinking, there's a
Mhm.
lot of goodness. I was born in the Depression,
Mhm.
no electricity, and no running water. Grew up in World War II, saving lard and not being able to have a car or a bicycle because you couldn't get tires for them because rubber was rationed. Then got out of that, and it's just time for Korea, which is aggravating. You wind up in uniform, and that never leaves you. By the way, the older I get, the more I talk like I talked back then. And I lived a life without cursing. And because I stayed so long in the service, now at 90, I practically curse every breath. And it embarrasses me, and I wish I wouldn't do it, but they take a boy and they train him. So anyway, you go through that, and then you go through the computer age, you go through the television age, you go through the wireless radio. Well, we thought that's something to have a radio that didn't have to have an
You
antenna.
do pretty good with that, I gotta say.
Yeah, so
You've only asked me one time how to do something on your cell phone.
I'm not too good at it. But anyway,
He actually tells me how I need to do it.
I'll tell you, when I was in the service, uh, we discovered electrical things that we didn't have during World War II. We had during the Korean War. But anyway, this guy says to me, "What's the most important thing?" I'm thinking about all these things I just talked about. And I finally said, I think the most important thing that changed the world is the atomic bomb. Because really and truly, I can think of nothing more that changed history any more radical than that. It stopped World War II, where both of my uncles were shot, survived. To stop that, of course, I lived through rationing and all that good stuff. Delivered and sold the papers on VE Day and VJ Day as in the 6th grade. So the stuff that flowed out of World War II, television eventually. You know, when I was a boy, we didn't have a refrigerator. And don't even talk about air conditioning.
I would be one of those people who would actually be okay without it. I'm very cold natured.
Well, you're lucky.
Yeah, my husband's extremely hot natured.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say, Mother, it's so hot in here. Well, open the window wider, son. It's as wide as it'll go. Then just think about being cool and shut up.
Just think about it. You know what my grandmother used to do? So, and I would see her do this a lot when she would work outside in the garden. She would go to the refrigerator, the ice box, and get ice and put it right here on her wrist. And that would cool her off as pulse points.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, you just said something that we always had, and that was a garden.
Oh, man, I
You
love my
may
garden.
believe we had a garden, and during World War II, it was called a victory garden. But at the French household, it was a starvation garden. You better have a garden. You better grow those beans and corn and tomatoes and okra, carrots, all those things that we grew in the garden, bell peppers. And
People were thinner back then. Do you think it's because of the food they ate? You know, versus running to McDonald's getting a Big Mac every day?
oh my goodness, yeah, we didn't. We were skinny. I think I was trying to remember when I covered 100 pounds. You know what grade I was in, because thin as rails. We were active.
Yeah, that's one thing right
You
there.
walked everywhere you went because you didn't have a car. And I bought our first car for the family.
How much was it? What kind of car was it?
It was a 1940 Plymouth. It was $900.
$900.
Yeah.
Without a lot of money though back then.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I think I paid it off in payments of $30 a month. But it was used. But I was a shade tree mechanic by then. And so I kept it running, changing out heads, putting in new head gaskets, and servicing it. But I have no regrets about that because even now I know motors pretty good. I know fouls, so on. So anyway,
Wait, I gotta ask this.
all
How
right,
much was gasoline per gallon?
19 cents.
9 cents.
And
They're
you know
looking for
what?
it to be $5 a gallon
And you
this
know how I
summer.
know?
Oh.
My buddy Roland and I, we were both paper boys,
Mhm.
and we'd turned 15 years old, and we started smoking cigarettes, Camels. And of course, neither one of us could afford to buy a 19-cent pack of Camels. And so I made a deal with the grocer where we shopped and had credit to sell me a pack of Camels and charge it as a quart of milk.
So Mama wouldn't find out about
Right.
it.
So
Uh
we'd
huh.
go in, Roland and I'd go in and say, Miss Talbrooks, we need a quart of Camels. So that's how I know it was
Uh
19
huh.
cents. Same as a pack of cigarettes.
So did your mom find out that you were smoking cigarettes?
Eventually, she never found out that she paid for them because I brought home everything I made anyway. And, if I made $18, well, that was a lot of money. I usually could make $18 a week. So,
There was something about people wanted to pay their bills then. Now, people are going to college and it's being paid for by the government, or they're trying to, which to me is an insult to the people who, like me, who actually worked and paid for their own college.
well, let me tell
And
you something. I'm one of the few people you'll ever meet who worked 40 hours a week and went to law school
mhm,
and carried the dean's list.
mhm.
It's was they said it couldn't be done. I had to get waivers from the president of the university who told me this is such a waste of time because you'll never make it.
You
Then
showed
I had to
them.
get a waiver from the dean of the law school, Dean Harrison. He said, well, I'm going to sign it and take a chance, but you'll never make it. And if it hadn't been for a professor in politics, I would have graduated magna cum laude. So I had all A's, one or two B's, but I was working 40 hours a week.
It can be done.
Yeah, well, we had this professor who was mean as a striped snake, and I was the only Republican in law school.
Even back then.
Well, this was in the 50s.
Uh-huh.
No, it was in the 60s. I graduated from undergraduate in 59, graduated from law school in 63. Anyway, it was Alabama was all Democrat, eaten up with it. And I worked a lifetime to change it and had some success. But anyway, I'm a straight A student. At the end of, I think, 3 semesters, I had enough quality points to graduate. Had straight A's. 4-hour courses, constitutional law, property 4, property 1, 2, and 3, criminal law, all these tough courses. And I aced them all. Well, we came to property 4, which is wills and trusts. And the professor was Dr. Payne, who the students called Blackjack behind his back because they said he couldn't be trusted. Well, I thought he could be, and I had to take it. You had to take property 4. So I took it. And I was working full time, driving a sports car, looking like $1 million, and working hard at BF Goodrich as a personnel man. And I go through property 4 and I'm expecting an ace. And I got a D.
Mm.
And I went to see Dr. Payne. I said, Dr. Payne, how in the world can I get a D? I've never had a D. Well, you just didn't write a good paper. And I said, well, I
Because you
can't.
were a Republican and he was a
Well,
Democrat.
I didn't say that because I knew that.
First thought, because
Oh,
I have to deal with that too.
I know every day he would lecture us about how sorry Republicans were. I'm sitting there as the only one. He'd start out and they'd all look around at
Yeah.
me. Old John Patterson's brother, various and sundry others. Old Richard Shelby,
Uh,
retired senator.
mhm,
Sorry, rascal.
mhm.
He was a good friend, I mean that, but he used to laugh at me because I was a Republican, and he
He changed
became a
over then.
Republican. So anyway,
Yeah, but I had an interview with him one time. I'm going to tell you what he said. He said, I'll be in D.C. I'll give you 5 minutes. And I said, 5 minutes? Now, I almost said, just forget it. But I thought, well, no, I'll go ahead and I'll interview him. So he liked the interview so much, I wound up with a 20-minute interview. So I actually had the upper hand on him. So what I did is I said, oh my goodness, we went past your 5 minutes. We have to go into a commercial break. Thank you so much for being with us on the show today. It thrilled me to death to say that.
well,
And he did change over to Republican.
Yeah. Yeah, he did.
you know,
He's
well,
still
he's like
there.
every other Democrat, just a straw in the breeze. Believes in power. That's all.
Mhm.
And
That was our commercial break.
Oh, I'm
We're
sorry.
no, you're doing great. We're gonna have to go ahead and cut into a commercial break. Usually I have a dog barking, but I didn't know if she'd like that or not. So anyway, we're going into a commercial break. We'll be right back in just a few minutes, so you hang in there, okay? Queen City Used Car Sales has been serving drivers in the Northeast Alabama area for years with a quality selection of late model used cars, SUVs, and pickup trucks. On top of our extensive selection and competitive prices, we offer professional auto financing services for used car buyers of all credit levels. Whether you've just begun your search or you're ready to secure your next vehicle, at Twin City Used Car Sales, you will drive away with the vehicle of your dreams. The sales and finance staff at Twin City Used Car Sales looks forward to serving you, and you can apply for financing online before your visit to our used dealership in Gadsden, Alabama. Check us out on the web at twincityusedcars.com or go by our location at 901 First Avenue, Gadsden, Alabama. We sincerely look forward to serving you. The Hatter Cafe and Country Inn is nestled in the northeast corner of Alabama the Beautiful in the delightful town of Mentone. We're located on top of scenic Lookout Mountain near Little River and DeSoto State Park and located only 5 minutes from shopping and restaurants. There is also a nearby community walking path and golf course. We welcome everyone through the doors, and we are committed to outstanding service for all guests. At the Hatter Cafe and Country Inn, we invite people from all walks of life to come and get away from it all, enjoy the open spaces, treetop views, fresh, clean air, and experience Southern hospitality at its finest. We look forward to hosting you. To reserve a special event, or if you would love a special getaway at the Country Inn, you can call us at 256-634-2018.
Are you ready?
We all wonder what tomorrow will bring, but the future lays itself at the feet of the prepared and surrenders to the will of the persistent. It's not easy, but today shapes you so you can shape tomorrow. With Northeast Alabama Community College, when the future asks if you're ready, you can answer
Yes.
Begin your future at Northeast Alabama Community College.
The only place I buy my beef is Lone Tree Ranch in Collinsville, Alabama. Their cattle is born and raised on their ranch, grass and grain fed, and you can feel confident when you serve your family and friends because their beef is all natural and no antibiotics or hormones are added. You can buy whole beef or perhaps go in with family or friends and buy half. Their customer service is number one as they take care of the delivery to their local processor and can deliver to your home for a small added fee. They also offer herd replacement heifers. I always call Lone Tree Ranch in Collinsville, Alabama for my beef specialty recipes and cookouts, and you can too. Food shortages are increasing, so buy local by calling 256-523-6462. That's 256-523-6462. At Lamone's Mexican Restaurant, located in Henniger, Alabama, and voted Best Mexican Restaurant of DeKalb County, Alabama 2020, we're here to serve you with authentic Mexican cuisine. Order easily online by going to lamonsmex.com or call 256-657-3999 to place your order. We're open Sunday through Thursday, 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. and Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Whether you're celebrating a cozy date night for two or a celebration for a crowd, at Lamone's you'll love our atmosphere and friendly servers. Thank you for dining with Lamone's Mexican Restaurant. We're back. Thank you so much for watching Donna's Edge Talk Show. I'm Donna Fiesel. I'm your host. You can find us every day on television, Channel 182 on Charter Communications and Abundance Television, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. You got a lot of Texas people who are watching you right now.
Really?
I've got a bunch of. You can send emails to Donna@donnasedge.com, and this is how I know. I get emails from all over the country, but it seems like we have more listeners actually on Roku from Texas than from Alabama. It's crazy.
Well, I have a
In fact, I'm a
connection.
Texan.
I have a connection with Texas.
Do ya? I do too. I'm married to one. He's from Houston.
Well, my father was born in Texas.
What part?
Now, Iredell, right in Central Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandfather was born on the boat coming over. And my great-grandmother and great-grandfather died on that boat. So he was put off at Galveston, and the only person they could find that would take this baby was an uncle from Conahatta, Mississippi, named Red John French. I've been to his grave just to make sure he's still there. So anyway, he took the baby and was very mean to my grandfather and whipped him one day with a handsaw. And that was it. My grandfather was 7 years old, and he ran away to Texas.
It's 7.
7, yeah. They did things
Kids
like
were a little more grown up back then than
Yeah.
they are now, right?
So anyway, he goes out to Texas and gets a job on a ranch as a ranch hand, and worked there all of his life until he got grown. And the rancher's wife took a liking to him because he was totally redheaded with a red beard and all of it. They called him Neely. His name was Neil Robert French. And he grew up there, and she taught him to be a musician and taught him to read and write, taught him the Bible, and then sent him off to college.
Wow, amazing.
And he graduated in a Presbyterian college out there. A small one is still there. And when he got through with that, he became a traveling evangelist and eventually became one of the heroes of the Presbyterian Church, because the Presbyterian Church had a rule that if you weren't a graduate of Yale University, you could not be a Presbyterian minister. Well, the country is flowing west over the mountains, and they get over the mountains, and they have no preacher. There were no preachers west of the Adirondacks or Smoky. So they organized the Covenant Presbyterians. That meant if you were ordained by a church, you could be a minister. And so he was ordained right after college. I've got his picture on the wall in my office in there. But he grew up a cowboy. One of his favorite stories was that the ranch owner told him, said, Neely, go over in the lower 40 and try to get that bull out of that pasture with those cows. We're going to have more calves than we can handle. But watch that bull and don't let him get after you because he's mean.
I have to deal with bulls.
So he goes over there, rides over there on his horse, starts trying to get the bull out of the pasture with the heifers. He wasn't doing too good, so being my ancestor, he decided to take things into his own hands.
I'm just seeing that out of you.
And he got down off of his horse and got a big stick and started chasing the bull. The bull ran for a little bit, and then the bull thought to himself, why am I doing this with that idiot? So he turns around and starts chasing my grandfather.
Did your grandfather jump up a tree?
And guess what? Yeah, he got up a tree. He got hit the bull between him and the tree. And while he kept the bull on the other side of the tree, he climbed up the tree. And the rancher told him, now, Neely, go over and don't let any grass grow under your feet. Get on back after you get that bull out of that heifer pasture. Well, he was up a tree and that bull wouldn't let him come down. He had to spend the night in that tree.
They don't give up, bulls don't.
No. And so
They know what they want and they go for it.
the rancher decided that they better take some cowhands and go find that boy, who was the apple of his wife's eye. And he was about 17 years old. So they go over there and they find him up a tree. And he says, get down, Neely. I told you to not let any grass grow under your feet, and you're letting the whole world grow under your feet. My grandfather used to love to tell that story. But anyway, long story short, he met my grandmother, who was a graduate of Mississippi College for Women, on an evangelical sortie. And my father was born in Texas. And eventually they came to Gurley, Alabama, over here near Huntsville. And he was Presbyterian minister over there for about 30 years. They served the Big Cove and New Hope, Owens Crossroads. And he was quite a man. I wound up with all of his books, his gospel books, 4 books on Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And in teaching the Bible, I used those books for years and years. They're so threadbare now, they'll fall apart. But
Now, you have written a book, and I bought the book and I gave it to my son for his birthday, and he is treasuring the book. So let's talk about that and where people can buy that book before I forget, before we
which
end the
one are you
show.
talking about? I've got 6 out there.
The latest one.
Call Me Herman.
No. Oh, and I like that book too. I'd like to talk to you about it. We need 2 hours. We got about 18 minutes for that. But you've written several commentaries. You've also written things with Call Me Herman
Oh, yeah.
about your life.
Yeah, but I've also written An Adventure with John, which is a biblical.
Well, that's the one that I bought from you.
Is it? Oh, good. That's one of my proudest books. It took me 20 years to write it. It's got all kind of research in it. And I've got laying on my desk back there my Mark manuscript. It's edited, laid out, and ready to go. And I just can't seem to get my want-tos up and get it out of here. But now that I've gotten rid of a 24-year-old case today.
24-year-old case.
Yeah, well, I'm retired, and the only thing I'm doing is handling these things that are hanging. I had one that was hanging 24 years, got rid of it today. Last Friday, I had one that had been hanging 7 years. I got rid of it on Friday. So I'm wrapping them all up. It's just taking a while. And I don't know where I was going with that story. Don't need to be a 90 if you don't act
Now,
like it.
how can people find your books? I know
Oh,
you
we
got
was talking
Amazon.
about my books. Yeah, yeah. Amazon, Bob French, Robert B. French, Robert B. French Jr., Blackstone Company, whatever. But
I've got a collection of them, and they're a must read. You must. And I hope you're not offended, but when I read a book, I use yellow highlighters
yeah,
and I go through them and
so do
I make little. Okay, well, I know you spent a lot of time writing this book. I didn't want you to think I was defacing it or something.
No.
Authors can be a little bit picky about your books.
Which one you gave him, John? Yeah, well, I'm quite proud of John.
He's my son is he works for the big grocery store chain, and he's also a minister.
Oh,
He
well, he
goes to
loved John.
he goes to Southeastern Seminary.
Well, John is very well researched. It took years to write it, and then I just took on off and wrote Mark. Mark is such a good book.
Yeah, he'll want to buy that one. I'm
Yeah,
sure.
well,
So.
I've got to get that printed. It's running, 900 pages,
Wow.
but it's got everything in it. It really does the Roman history, traces Rome all the way through it.
And he loves to read about Rome history. He's just and he'll continue going to school the rest of his life. As a matter of fact, it reminds me of you. It's just he loves school.
It's easy to become a professional student
Mm-hmm.
once you've got to where you got the grip on it of how to study,
Mm-hmm.
and you can just get more and more and more. I mean, I ran out of stuff to study, so I studied Spanish.
There you go. Well, let me ask you a question. So you've been an attorney now for how many years?
62 years.
62 years. So if you hadn't chosen that profession, what do you think you would have been?
I know what I would have been, what I was doing when Celeste wouldn't move up north.
I don't blame her.
Well, Celeste was a Midtown Manhattan girl, and she was a nurse that graduated from Middletown State University. And we fell in love when I was a West Point student, trying to get into to the academy. I was at West Point Preparatory School at Newburgh, New York. And anyway, we got married and we were doing fine. And I graduated from commerce and business at the university and got the plum job offered to the graduating commercial class. And that was assistant personnel manager at B.F. Goodrich plant in Tuscaloosa.
Mm-hmm.
There were 1,320 employees, and I hired in making more than the dean of the School of Commerce and Business Administration. So, and they let me go to law school. But the thing that I'm getting down to is that they came up with this idea. A fellow by the name of Nairati came up with this idea in Akron that they ought to take the president of B.F. Goodrich and find the best young man, most talented young man in the company, and bring him to Akron as assistant to the president so that he'd know everything that J. Ward Keener knew. By the way, Keener's ancestry is from down the road down here, Keener.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, they did that, and after a 6-month study, they came up with 3 top contenders. I was one of them. Mm-hmm. My newspaper won the Meritorious Achievement Award. I had accounted for 6 million accident-free man hours. You can go on and on and on with stuff like that I tried to do and did. But enough to distinguish that I was one of the top 3. And Nairati came to Tuscaloosa to meet me. And we talked, and he said, well, if you were offered the opportunity to be assistant to the president, we got plants in 32 different countries. How would you feel about travel? That'd be fine with me. So I told my boss that he asked me all about traveling. He said, Bob, you got it. He said, they just want to make sure that they can trust you. So I went home and told Celeste that Mr. Young thinks that I'm going to get this job. And she said, well, you may as well turn it down because we're not moving back to the dark north I've spent a lifetime getting out of it, and I'm not going back. She said, do you really think that a girl from Midtown Manhattan, New York, would be happy in Akron, Ohio? So, I was used to doing what my mother said, so here's
So you
another
do what?
female. And I take instructions pretty good, so I told Miss Nairati that if I was offered it, I'd have to turn it down.
Your life would have been totally different, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah, my boss, when he found out about it, he cried. He'd been with the company 37 years. And he says, you may as well look for another job. He said, you're the best assistant I've ever had, but you're going nowhere in this company. You might get to be a plant manager, but you're never going to be happy being a plant manager. So I said, well, what am I going to do? He said, I don't know. I'm not going to fire you, but you better get yourself another job. So I told Celeste, she says, well, why don't we go to med school? We moved to Birmingham. I'll get a job at UAB as a nurse, and we'll put you through med school. I said, Celeste, I can't stand the sight of blood.
Well, then you don't need to go to med school.
I'm not interested in that. So she says, well, then you're going to have to go to law school. So that's what I would have done if I hadn't been a lawyer. I would have gone on up the chain and B.F. Goodrich and become somebody instead of sitting here in a two-bit law
With
library.
me.
No.
So let me ask you this another question. So you and I grew up in this. I always wanted to do the best I could do on a job. I didn't want my boss to think I was lazy. I didn't want, I wanted to be the best I could ever be. So I always moved up in companies pretty fast.
Yeah.
But now we're in a different world now. People are not necessarily looking to be the best all they can be anymore. They come in late, if they even show up at all. Probably the best thing happened to you, because my business is very small. It's just filling me, and I want it that way. I do not want to hire anybody. We've got everything because of computers and automation. It can be just filling me. How would you feel about hiring 1,000 employees in this day and time?
Wow.
I would be going crazy. I'm just telling you, I don't think I could handle it. And I used to own a Snelling. You ever heard of Snelling Personnel Services? Snelling and Snelling?
I have.
Okay. I used to own one of the franchises.
Oh, okay.
But this was in the 80s, though. This is the time when there were no jobs. And lots of people were out. The pendulum has changed. And so I think I liked it better back then than I would now.
Yeah. Well, I really enjoyed my job with B.F. Goodrich. It was wonderful. I made all of these records, broke all these records in the rubber industry. At the time I got 6 million man hours, nobody had ever even come close. 5 years later, it was broken by General Tire. But 6 million man hours and no accidents?
But you would be at the mercy of people now that have a whole different mind frame.
Oh, I couldn't do it. No, I couldn't get in there with those crazy people. Everybody that I knew was trying their best to advance.
So what's wrong with ambition? It seems as if we're at this wave now, these days in time, where people are just not ambitious anymore. It drives my son nuts because he has to hire people, and he said, they'll come in and slouchy and talking on their cell phone during an interview. During an interview, and they may show up and they may not.
Well, things are too easy. The government puts out too much money. People can live without working.
But I still like to work. I don't care. Most of the people I went to school with have already retired, and I just can't.
Well, the hardest thing I ever did was put Tommy and Tammy through the university. And I killed myself to do that, having two at the university at the same time. and both of them went for 5 years. And Tommy went on to law school. So it's been a long, hard pull, working hard. But I was raised to work hard, picking cotton, picking bowls, and picking peppers, whatever you could get a job doing. And you know, people just don't have the drive. I still have a drive. I worked this morning.
Hmm.
I can't get rid of it. But
You just get that in you, and it's hard to get it out. My granddad was okay. You've been to my farm,
mhm.
and so this was my granddad's farm, and I bought my inheritance. So we moved back from Charlotte, North Carolina, and Phil and I bought the farm. But I've heard the story about how the farm back in 1938, I think it was, when he bought it, 38 acres, and then house, barn, and all that, and it was $5,000. And he said his parents tried to talk him out of it. His mother said, "Oh, you don't need to get in debt like that. You can live with us, and all this kind of stuff." And so he worked a job, and he also worked on the farm, raised peanuts, and he always said peanuts helped him actually pay off the house in 2 years. But he said $5,000 was a lot of money back then. That was hard to do. So he set a goal, this little thing that you and I talk about, setting goals.
Oh yeah,
How important is setting a goal? I don't care what it is,
yeah,
whatever you're doing in life.
yeah. You gotta have goals.
I
Yeah,
can't imagine not setting a goal.
me either. My goal right now is to learn how to be retired, and I'm not doing too well at it. I'm still hanging out, coming down here, 'cause I can't sleep past 6:30.
Mhm. Yeah, I know what you mean.
So
Well, do you like to fish? What are some
I'm
things you just like to do?
I'm fished out. I grew up on Tennessee River.
Well,
I've graduated from catfishing to bass fishing to crappie fishing and finally fly fishing. And when you become a fly fisherman, you don't fish anymore. You cast flies.
mhm.
You make
That's
flies.
the ultimate. That's where I
Oh,
want to be, right? I
oh,
want to
you
be in
just
fly
can't
fishing.
believe it. I've had some of the most wonderful times of my life fly fishing.
Mhm.
Throw it in that foam as that thing's rushing down there, and that speckled trout come out of that hole, grab it, you're on your way. It's going to live forever. So no, I don't. Well, I guess that's why I wrote the book, Call Me Herman. I've done everything, really.
Yeah, but you're an artist as well.
Well, but I've got the trimmers now, and I don't know whether I can paint or not. I'm gonna have to find out, but I haven't had the urge. I have to have the muse hit me.
Mhm. An artist does. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
when
not
it,
like people say.
when
You
it
just sit
hits me,
down and paint a picture. It's
yeah. But anyway, I guess we're coming down to the end, aren't we?
Yeah, you're getting pretty close.
I'd like,
You've got less than 4
well,
minutes.
I'd like to say a few more things about women and mothers. Uh, what was that thing I wrote in that poem? Uh, Madam, I am Adam. Oh, well, anyway, one of the lines was, oh, I am what you conceive. I am what you believe. I am Adam. I'm Eve. Why the fuss? Let's be us. Anyway, there was a line in a poem I wrote that I wish I could remember. Um, it's called Every Man, and it has that whatever you believe, if you work hard enough, you can do it. You can conceive it, and you can own it. And right now, if I could think of something I want to do, and I could do it, I'd do it. But I'm down to the point now where I'm coasting on out. But during my lifetime, I've always had these goals. And I reached every one of them if you read Call Me Herman.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, I've got the book. You need to order that too. That's on Amazon. And you'll learn a lot of life lessons. And if you're just starting out owning your own business and whatever you're going to do, or you decide you want to go to college and be a doctor, whatever it is, an attorney, you got to get that book.
Well, you have to set a goal and get out and get it.
It's not you just do this, because a lot of people say, well, I'm waiting on God to tell me what to do. I'm sorry, but if I've waited I think a lot of times God thinks, you dummy. I've sent you the ship, weren't you? And you're looking for the airplane. I mean, I don't know. I have this idea. Tell me if I'm wrong. If I've got that thought in my head to do something, then I better do it. He's going to give it to somebody else if I don't.
You got it. Yeah. I got a kick out of my mother. This was something I was going to mention about Mother's Day. My mother she worked for Goodyear as a spooler. And I could tell you a lot of stories about that. She worked the midnight shift because she had 5 kids. And when I became a personnel assistant with 1,300 employees in the rubber industry, she was so happy. So when Celeste said, we're not going up there,
Uh-oh.
I said, well, you're going to have to tell Mother.
Well, then let's just go.
And so she said, I will, because we are not going. So I called up Mother and I said, Mother, Celeste has something she wants to tell you about this possible promotion I had and everything. So Celeste got on the phone and said, Mother French, we are not going to Akron, Ohio. He is going to become a lawyer.
Mm.
My mother said, oh, that's so sad. All lawyers are crooks.
I knew you were going to say that. I just said, so you're ending it on a good tone. Okay, so we're about to leave. What would you like to say to everybody before we go?
God bless every mother, and just remember, if you ever hear my name, I am opposed to abortion. I think there's nothing sweeter than a tiny little soft baby. And even at this age, I love to touch them and to watch them grow up and how fast they get away. It's amazing what the Lord does. So if you got them, love them, enjoy them, and do them right.
Absolutely. Thanks, Bob, for being on the show with me
Glad
today.
to be here.
It's always an honor. And it's always an honor that you're watching as well. Thank you so much. Hope you have a wonderful rest of the day.
My Towels solved a problem that we've all had with towels. You go into the stores and they feel lotiony and soft, but then you get them home and they wind dry you. That's why I made My Towels. They actually work, they're soft, and they absorb. And now I'm excited to announce 2 brand new lines of My Towels. What makes them the best towels ever is they're now made with 100% long staple Shapir cotton. This is a combed ring spun cotton that makes My Towels even softer and more absorbent than ever. And now you get a 6-piece set for an amazing introductory sale price as low as $29.98. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get My Towels for only $29.98. Or you can get my designer premium line for just $20 more. Either way, you save 50% now on all My Towels. They actually work. What a concept. This offer won't last long, so please order now.
MyPillow.com